about. Okay, so you just got to be the thing about is understanding that Hawaiian history is shared in a man of stories. So what I share with you is actually from a story, all right? And it's associated with this park. And it's been actually transferred to writing, but its origin is a story. And the story basically has it that amongst the people living here, um, it's all documented in the archaeological survey that was done. So everything I share with you is actually in writing. Archaeological survey, they identified the Kiyomanu as a resident of this area. And he lived here. And that he trapped birds by smoke. Okay. And prior to ever coming to this place, I was never aware of the feather gathering by smoke. And the bird that he trapped was the manu o'o, which is a black bird, the yellow feather. You gotta remember, the yellow feather was the bird of preference right on Oahu, because that was the color of preference for the Oahu Island chiefs. The Big Island was red, Maui was red, Oahu, and of course was a combination of red and gold, but Oahu was primarily a gold feather. And that feather actually came from the manu o'o. Here, he trapped him with smoke as the bird was feeding on the noni fruit, which is the yellow fruit, which you get right over here. He trapped him with smoke as the bird was feeding on the noni fruit. The question is, I used to raise bees before, so we used to use smoke. I used to use smoke to calm the bees down, to get to the hive, to take the honey out. Yeah. So I used to do that. I used to do that right here. I used to put my hives inside the forest, because we get plenty of honey bees in here. So, and the Keawe honey was the best tasting.
The white one.
It's yellow. The almond's yellow. Eh? So this place is the best tasting honey. So I used to catch bees. So yeah. So I know about smoke, but I never heard of smoking one bird. You know how you knock out or calm a bird with smoke. Okay, this is our mana'o now. Okay, this is not anything that's documented in writing. This is our mana'o. The story is he trapped the manu o'o by smoke as a bird is feeding on the noni fruit. Okay. What we know here is this. We get plenty noni actually growing out in the forest. And at a distance, it looks like the tree is growing on the surface, but when you get close to them, they're all growing in holes. We get plenty young trees, but they're growing on the surface. But the older parent trees, 15, 20 feet down, and the tree is just growing out of the hole, it's so big. The noni is not endemic. The noni is considered a canoe plant.
Yeah.
Okay. And I did some research on my own, so I've been talking to some people from the Polynesian Voyaging Society because it's considered a canoe. So I kind of wanted to get their canoe concept or understanding with respect to canoe plants. The noni is this. This is what was shared with me. It was considered a canoe plant. It was carried on every trip, which is the reason why the noni you find them all over the Pacific. It was carried on every canoe because they never knew how long it would take for them to find an island. Okay? And oftentimes they may run out of food and they may run out of water. But the thing about the noni, it's a perennial plant where it provides food all year round. Always get fruits. And the thing is that it doesn't need fresh water. It can survive on salt spray. You know, being out in the ocean, the spray of the salt can keep that plant functioning and surviving. The reason why it was so important to have the noni on a canoe, as explained to me by navigators, was because whenever they ran out of water and they ran out of food, if they always had one noni tree, they would always have food available. The only thing is, I don't know if you ever tried tasting a noni fruit. It's a lousy tasting fruit, you know. Guys make medicine out of them. But to just eat that fruit, it's horrors. But the thing that was shared with me is that it's a nutritious fruit. So in other words, it doesn't satisfy your hunger, but it keeps this working because they get topsoil. And because of the depth of the soil, it's moist and it's cool. So they replant inside sinkholes. So they replant the noni inside sinkholes. Today, those mountains are like 30, 40 feet tall inside the forest. Okay. Our thinking is, when they first got here, never have this canopy, never have keawe, so had plenty of sunlight. So when they plant them in the sinkhole, had enough sunlight, even though the plant is 15, 20 feet in a hole, had enough overhead sunlight to sustain the plant growing. So the plant was able to grow and mature and fruit underground. Okay. So our thinking is this. This is Mana'u now. Okay. Our thinking is that because the stories say he would smoke the bird as the bird was feeding on unknown fruit, the only thing that makes sense was when this Kiyomanu who's living here saw the bird go in a hole, he will get one man, Allah, throw him over the hole, pump that smoke in the hole, and then wait, and then go in the hole, go get the bird. Pull the feathers, CPR, let him fly. That's the only thing that makes sense. If, in fact, the story replicates the manner in which they trap the birds and recover feathers. That's the only thing that makes sense. So one of the things I tell every one of our visitors, I don't consider us guys experts, because everything we share is actually written. All I do is read them. I just read them and I repeat stuff. That's all I do. I don't do nothing else. Because we're not the experts here, this is one of the areas where we need help. So what we always do is that we always make a point in those areas. We always make a point of telling our students and visitors that this is our Mana'u. So if anybody has a better explanation on how this guy would smoke this bird, we want to know. We want to know what someone else might be thinking, because that's only based on our observation, on finding the trees, guessing that that's the manner in which he did this whole thing. So we just make a point of making sure to interpret it to the plan, that we identify documented stuff and stuff that's our Mana'u. That's all. But that's the Kiyomanu. We never move a single stone. What you're looking at is exactly how we found them when we came here. We were able to find this structure because we saw the tea leaves growing out of the weeds. It's identified as an agricultural sinkhole. It's identified as agricultural because of the tea leaves. The tea leaves is not an endemic plant. The tea leaves is a plant that was brought here. So somebody went in that hole to plant them. So the reason it's identified as agricultural and the tea leaf is because the tea leaf was used to support their subsistence lifestyle. So it was used for laulaus, right? Used to making containers for foods. So it was, as you go into the Heritage Park, there's many sinkholes today with tea leaves growing in them. Nobody watered them. It survives on its own. So there's several aspects about this sinkhole that tells you something. Traditionally, a traditional river, water travels from the higher elevations to the lower elevations. Whether you're talking about the snow-driven waters of the Rocky Mountains to the flat agricultural lands of California, to the muddy Mississippi, to the East Coast. It's similar even here. Water travels from the higher elevations to the lower elevations. An island is a perfect template for understanding the path of water. On a continent, it's hard because the distances the water travel. Here, in one day, you can go to where the source of the water to where the water ends up, okay? Because of the distance between the mountains. The traditional water here travels in the same manner as it does elsewhere around the world. It travels in a surface depression. As it's traveling from the higher elevations to the lower elevations, carrying with it soil. As it's traveling fast, it's carrying its soil. As the water hits the flatland, the water slows down, and so it deposits that soil. That becomes your agricultural lands, like any place else in the world. However, in this geographical region, we don't have any rivers. The closest river east of us is in Waipahu. The closest river west of us is the Manakuri. No river, okay? Which raises the question, why would somebody want to live here? In those early periods of exploration, whether you're talking about Hawaii and migration, or you're talking about elsewhere in the world, people, early settlement all occurred at the source of water. Villages, cities grew up along a river, okay? Water was so critical. Nothing else is as important as fresh water. So every civilization had its origin associated with the path of water. Okay, people moved inland along the path of water as they traveled. They never would move away. They stuck to a river, like in close proximity to the river. Same thing happens here. The only thing is that there is no river here. So the question is, where did they get their water? Okay, when you pass fresh water over coral, which is limestone, it dissolves the coral. So what it does, it creates a whole series of caves, or you can call them karsts. Okay? So in these geographic regions, you have a whole series of caves that's running from the Waianae Mountains. It's traveling to the ocean. Okay? Water is traveling underground. It's traveling in the same manner as the surface depression. So as the water is traveling from the higher elevations of the Waianae Mountains to the flat lands of Kapolei, it's carrying with it soil and nutrients underground. As soon as the water hit the flat land of Kapolei and Kalaeloa, it deposits that soil. That is your agricultural lands underground. So although there's no soil on the surface, the soil is there. Okay? And that's what these people found out early on. So they learned really early that although this above here is hot and brutal, it's cool, moist, and can sustain life underground. So much of that farming was done underground. We're talking about just tea leaves now. Okay, that also makes reference to everything else that they grew here, with the exception of sweet potato. Sweet potato they grew here on mounds, sweet potato mounds. So what they did is that they gathered what little compost was available during the hot months. As the winter months was approaching, the sun far away, expecting the rains to come, that's when they would plant the Iowa potato. So as soon as the rain started coming, our September, our October, that's when they started covering them up to allow for the plants to, I hope those guys don't run over thorns, they're going to regret it. But anyway, fight of the hard way. But anyway, as the ceiling of that cave, the cave that's traveling from the Waianae Mountains to the ocean, as the ceiling of the cave gets thin, and it caves in, that's your sinkhole. This sinkhole was identified as an agriculture sink again because of soil. At any particular point in the traditional river or this hidden river, the slowest moving water is the water traveling along the banks. The fastest moving water is the water that's traveling along the middle. Okay? That's the cleanest water. So we're actually right here. This is